I'm Madison Richards, and I live in Racine, Wisconsin. This year, I'm a sophomore at Horlick High School.
My name is Samantha Noll, and I'm a sophomore at Case High School in Racine, Wisconsin.
Several years ago, we developed an interest in making documentaries. We both enjoyed using a camera to tell a story that could change people's lives. Recently, we formed our own production company.
Late last year, our documentary advisor explained to us that the Keystone Center in Keystone, Colorado was writing a grant to the Dow Chemical Company to create a documentary to go with the new unit they had developed called the Balance Equation. We were being considered to produce this documentary because we had won 3 consecutive national C-SPAN student cam documentary competitions.
Dow wanted to tell a story through the eyes of students who would be the same age as those doing the unit. In early 2011, we found that the grant that the Keystone Center had written to Dow had been accepted. We would be traveling out of the country to make a documentary. The documentary we were going to create was to be on water. Early on, we asked ourselves, why water? It soon became clear after we did our initial research.
884 million people in the world do not have access to safe, sanitized water. That's about 1/8 of the world's population. 3.5 million people die each year because they lack clean, drinkable water. That'd be like 4 cities the size of San Francisco being wiped off the map each year, or 5 Hurricane Katrinas every day, or World Trade Center falling every 4 hours.
One has to ask, where are the headlines? Where is the outrage? Where is our humanity? The real tragedy is that this is completely preventable. We have the technology to address this issue, and that is the story we wanted to tell in our documentary. Water is a paradox. It is the most abundant substance on earth, and yet to some it is the scarcest. It is essential to life, and yet it has the power to take it.
The question that we both asked ourselves is, how do we begin to tell a story? We wanted to make the story personal, something that related directly to the people who are affected by this issue every day, in their communities and in their homes. We decided the best way to accomplish this is to focus on point-of-use water filtration systems. Point-of-use systems can be used directly within homes to purify water for a single person or an entire family. Also, point-of-use systems are very portable. Most can be carried during travel or moved to a new home location, something that is impossible to do with a well.
They are different from wells because drilling a well or putting in a piping system for something like our city water would be considered a more permanent solution. However, these more permanent solutions are very difficult to implement in developing countries. It's estimated that up to 50% of wells installed in developing countries are not functioning after 5 years due to lack of the parts and educational training needed to maintain the systems.
This has been improving over the last several years, but the fact still remains that the resources to successfully build and maintain wells are severely lacking in developing countries. Point-of-use filtration systems were exactly what we were looking for. They address the lack of clean water at a personal level.
Although the availability of clean water is a global crisis, time and budget limitations would allow us to only focus on 1 or 2 countries. We decided on Kenya and the Dominican Republic.
We selected these 2 countries because they both have significant issues surrounding the availability of clean water. Only 12% of people in the rural areas of Kenya and 62% in the rural areas of the Dominican Republic have access to clean water. This is in comparison to developed countries like Japan, which has 91%. These 2 countries were also in the beginning phases of implementing point-of-use water filtration systems.
Filming a documentary in a foreign country would present some new problems for us, especially because neither of us spoke Swahili or fluent Spanish. We all realized that in order to film this documentary successfully, we needed more hands than just the 2 of us could supply. We decided to ask my sister, Cindy, if she would be willing to join us in our documentary crew and be our audio specialist. She gladly agreed.
Before we began our travels, we investigated the different point-of-use systems we would be filming. We even attended a workshop in San Francisco on the devices. At the workshop, we met Tommy Fouché from Dow, who was instrumental in allowing us to produce this documentary. He is very knowledgeable about the curriculum unit and the issues we are addressing in our documentary.
The Balanced Equation curriculum, which was created in 2007, is designed to take the subject matter of water filtration and clean water and then put it into a curriculum that helps not only educate teachers about water and their students, but it also is a great tool, a great subject to help facilitate better learning practices and better teaching practices.
When April came around, we all started to pack our bags. All the video equipment had to be packed in waterproof, crush-proof, and lockable cases. We had to get shots and take pills to make sure we'd come home healthy. There was a risk of catching diseases like malaria, typhoid, yellow fever, and hepatitis, so we were being as careful as possible. We also had to make sure that our passports were up to date.
We started our journey on April 19th. After traveling 16 hours, we arrived in Nairobi where we spent our first night. We took a short, early morning flight to the city of Kisumu, located on the western side of Kenya on Lake Victoria.
Kenya's natural beauty was everywhere. But as we went to the heart of Kisumu, one of the largest cities in Kenya, with a population of about 300,000 people, we saw a drastic contrast. There was garbage littering the streets and piles of burning trash. We also noticed numerous carts being pulled, by both hand and donkeys, filled with plastic containers. This is one of the ways in which water was delivered to the outlying areas of the city. We began to see that access to clean water, water distribution, and sanitation were issues that need to be addressed within this area.
We finally arrived at a gated missionary complex where we would stay for the next several days. At the complex, we met Michael Mena, who would be our driver for this coming week. He was very friendly, and more importantly, he spoke Swahili. As we entered the main building of the complex, we were given bottled water. We were told to drink only bottled water and to brush our teeth with it, not the standard procedure in our country. This was the first time we all realized that we were in a country quite different from ours when it came to water.
We had lunch at the compound and then headed out to our first filming assignment at a swap distribution center. We met Ali Alibad, who was in charge of the center and had lived in Kenya for many years. Her job included the distribution of water purification systems and basic hygiene products to people in the surrounding area.
SWAP is Safe Water and AIDS project. We started in 2005 because we were concerned about people living with HIV drinking very contaminated water and still getting sick with diarrhea despite now having some access to treatment. So we started promoting and selling through these groups and training them to become vendors of health and hygiene products. The overall goal is to have a healthy, self-reliant community who take responsibility of their own health.
She explained to us why the need was so great in this area. More than 60% of residents in Kisumu live in semi-urban settlements that ring the city. Although there are some household and community taps in the settlements, well over 50% of the people collect contaminated water from shallow wells or surface sources. Pit latrines are common, however, the water table is high and some latrines overflow often when it rains, thereby contaminating the water sources. In the past few years, there have been several cholera outbreaks in urban Kisumu caused by contaminated water.
The problem within this area again is poor sanitation. So most of the community members, they don't use toilets. They go to the bushes. So when it rains, everything, they just goes direct to the river.
The next morning, we traveled to Maisha Community Center. On the way there, we noticed dozens of women and young girls carrying containers on their heads. They are gathering water and bringing it back to their homes for their families. We discovered that in just one day, more than 200 million hours of women's time is consumed for the most basic of human needs, collecting water for domestic use.
I didn't like growing up in the village, that's for sure, because at the time when I was growing up, we could walk for, I would say, about 45 to 1 hour minutes to go fetch water in the local river and then walk back. So it took us almost 2 hours to get one little container of water. And I was never good at fetching water. And so I go to the river and you carry this big bucket in your hand. By the time I get back to our house, it was a quarter way because it's spilled, it's what. I was never good at that. My sister really enjoyed fetching water, but that was one of my hardest duties to ever do at the house. So growing up, I know water was a big issue in our family, especially in our household, because you go to school, you come back, you have to go fetch water from bathing to cooking to even letting the cow drink from that and everything. You go fetch it and bring it back.
Yeah, when we have a dry season, the water gets dry completely, and now it gets filled when it rains. Yeah.
So when the water is dry, where do you go to get your water?
Ikiisha mnachukuanga maji wapi?
Kisha tunaenda mpaka huko Chega.
Tenga. Kilomita gapi? Kutembea?
Kutembea.
Ama dakika gapi?
Dakika nusu saa lakini.
Kama ni kilomita kama 5. They normally go to get water from a place called Chenga on the other side of the village, and is a 5-kilometer walking or half an hour.
Knowing this made us think, what if they didn't have to spend this time getting water? Imagine the other things they could accomplish.
Life will change a lot. A lot of kids miss school to go help fetch water for mom because mom is sick, so they won't go to school. So for the kids, if there was more water, then I would be seeing kids in class. I would not see kids around the street carrying water because mom is sick, needs to take medicine, and need water to take medicine. So it's like they miss school to go fetch water. It's really common. I've seen a lot of that. It happens a lot. And for the women, you're really bringing a better, loving environment even for a woman to provide love to their children and have, time with the kids and stuff like that. Do more things to the house than spending a half of your day going to look for 5 liters of water.
When we arrived at the Mesha Community Center, a group of young girls greeted us with a welcome song. The center was recently constructed with the financial support of missionaries to help children in the area who have one or no parents get at least one good meal a day.
Many of their parents had AIDS or were HIV positive. Over 1.5 million people are living with the HIV virus in Kenya alone. Those infected with AIDS or HIV are severely affected by drinking contaminated water because of their compromised immune systems.
Representatives from Water is Life also met us at the Mesha Center.
My name is Christine Bender.
Christine Bender.
I'm a volunteer for Water is Life.
Water is Life.
Majini Maisha.
Water is Life is a nonprofit organization founded by Ken Surratt that is based in Oklahoma City. Their mission is to provide short and long-term sustainable water and sanitation solutions in developing countries.
Their executive director, Christine Bender, showed us how germs spread by using glitter, which stuck to participants when they shook their hands.
How do you get the shiny off your hands?
I
wash my hands using water and soap.
Very good. Oh, now I give you germs again. So now you have to wash your hands again.
This was a great way to demonstrate the spread of germs. She then explained how to wash your hands free of the sparkles, or germs, using the WASH program, which is water, sanitation, and hygiene. Her demonstration brought into focus the connection between water, sanitation, and waterborne illness, especially among children.
Diarrhea caused by contaminated water remains the second leading cause of death among children under 5 globally. Nearly 1 in 5 child deaths, about 1.5 million each year, is due to diarrhea. It kills more young children than AIDS, malaria, and measles combined.
Water is Life also produces and distributes water straws, which are point-of-use personal filtration devices. It's a straw that filters water as someone drinks from it. The straw contains small screen filters, iodine, and charcoal to filter and purify the water. It can be carried around a child's neck on a lanyard string, making it very portable and easy to access.
By using it, children can drink from almost any water source and not have to worry about getting diseases. It was clear to us that providing water as life straws to these children would help. More so, providing education on how to use them, as well as correct hygiene habits, would prevent many of them from suffering from diseases that they face daily from drinking contaminated water.
After we left the community center, we were introduced to Margaret Lesso from CARE, which stands for Cooperative for Assistance and Relief Everywhere. She traveled with us to a community health center and several homes that were implementing a chemical treatment point-of-view system called Pure Packets, produced by the Procter & Gamble company. One of the homes we visited was of Monica Awino Ravla, who had 7 children and also had AIDS. She told us that the Pure Packets had changed her life and the health of her children.
When we use water treated with pure, we have no problems of stomachache in the household. And as we were told that pure kills germs in the water, so we usually take water free from germs.
Before using the Pure Packets, she was constantly battling the effects of her disease and the deterioration of her children's health from drinking contaminated water. Pure Packets had given her hope that she saw every day in the eyes of her children.
The Pure Packets were pretty interesting to watch being used. One packet could clarify about 10 liters of water. The packet would get dumped into a bucket of contaminated water, and then the bucket would be stirred for 5 minutes. After letting the water settle, you could see all of the contaminants at the bottom of the bucket. The water would then be poured into another bucket through a clean cloth or t-shirt. The cloth would catch all of the contaminants that had settled out. The packets also contained a chlorine compound, similar to what we use in swimming pools, to kill any bacteria or viruses in the water.
How do you keep track of how the diseases have decreased over time?
Usually that is done by the health staff, trained nurse who is in charge of the facility. Whenever a patient comes, then the history of that patient is actually written down. So when the patient comes again, they will check, is it the same problem or it is a different problem? And they have ranked the diseases that are like very common. So that's how they came up with the oral diseases having gone down.
Like the water's life straw, this point-of-view system was extremely portable and was easily distributed to a large number of households in the area.
We have 2 main objectives of this Pampas Baby and Family Care Center. One of the main objectives is to make sure that the community members that are working here are self-sustained. The second major goal is to make sure that they pass the health information to the community members that are living around by providing the healthy products accessible to them. And I want to say that we've been able to achieve the 2 goals that we have, like the health information. This place is a cholera-prone area. During rainy season, there is always cholera outbreak, but we've not experienced that since we started this place.
While we were in Kenya, another company, Vestergaard Franson, was instituting a campaign to distribute a point-of-view system called the LifeStraw Family. On the top of the device, there's a pre-filter that you would hang and pour the contaminated water into. The water would flow through the pre-filter down a tube being pushed by the pressure of the remaining water in the bucket above, and then come out clean through the filter straw at the bottom. Vestergaard Franson is a Europe-based international company specializing in complex emergency response and disease control products. Their goal was to deliver 1 million units to families in Western Kenya. The LifeStraw family can produce a drinking water for a family of about 4 for up to 3 years. Supplying 1 million homes with this technology would definitely make a difference for Western Kenya.
During our trip to Kenya, we realized that we take fresh water for granted in our country. We have the privilege of having easy access to clean tap water. With the turn of a faucet, an action that takes only seconds, clean water is received. Developing countries, like Kenya, spend hours each day walking to different water sources, such as ponds and lakes, only to receive contaminated water.
In the United States, the average family of 4 uses more than 700 gallons of water each day for drinking, cooking, bathing, and washing. By contrast, the average family in Africa is able to access only 5 gallons of water to meet their need.
Another interesting observation that we made is that the decision to use a point-of-use system in Kenya was generally health-related. Many of the villages boiled their water to purify it, but the fumes created from the fire presented yet another health issue. And from what we saw, access to bottled water was extremely limited in rural areas.
Point-of-use water filtration and chemical treatment systems seem to be a viable option for the people of rural Kenya. However, numerous barriers such as adequate funding and lack of adequate distribution centers still exist to successfully reach the large number of families in need of these devices.
In Kenya, we examined the Water is Life straw, Pure Water packets, and the Life Straw family. However, we did not have access to several other point-of-use devices that we wanted to incorporate into our documentary. To see these devices in action, we had to travel to the Dominican Republic.
The trip to the Dominican Republic was considerably faster than to Africa, only about 5 hours. The Dominican Republic is slightly more than twice the size of New Hampshire. It shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti and has a population of about 10 million. Even though the country lies in the middle of the hurricane belt and is subject to severe storms from June to October, periodic droughts are common.
When we arrived in the Dominican Republic, a woman named Lisa Ballantyne greeted us at the airport. Lisa is a director of FilterPure, a nonprofit organization that makes ceramic water filters. She explained to us why she had chosen to become involved in this enterprise.
Well, I actually am the founder of the organization, and I lived here in the Dominican Republic 11 years ago. And with my experiences with the people, I saw the need for clean water and wanted to be able to offer something that was very practical, that would change their lives in a very practical and simple way. I was introduced to the filters and decided to start a project in the Dominican Republic in 2006. But I think the biggest thing for me is that I see that my work is actually affecting lives of people every day. And that's been very rewarding to see kids get healthy and lives change. And more than anything, to see the people that are making and producing these filters be empowered in their own skills, bringing back an ancient tradition of ceramics and bringing it to a life-saving technology.
Have you seen any changes in your health since before you used the filter?
¿Ha notado una diferencia en su salud
Claro que
de
sí.
antes?
Claro.
Yes, of course. ¿Como cuál tipo de cambios?
Como que no tengo que comprar tanto de parasitante porque
Like,
no.
right now, she doesn't have to buy anti-parasite medicine anymore.
No, casi no tienen parásito y
They almost never have parasites.
Y me ha dado muchos resultados el filtro.
And they've given them a lot of results. The filter's given her a lot of results.
No tengo que comprar aguas.
She doesn't have to buy water anymore. Y como los niños sienten.
Muy bien. Los niños se
Sus
sienten muy bien.
stomachs.
Bien.
And their stomachs feel good. The kids are good, they don't have stomach aches.
Mis niños no toman otra agua que no es.
She doesn't drink any other water that isn't the filter water. I think more than anything, I realized that average, regular people can make a difference in the world around us. And I'm just an average person. I knew about ceramics. I'm a mom. I was a stay-at-home mom. And the fact that I could do something that's very simple and change thousands of lives really inspired me that in the United States, what you do every day can change the lives of the people that are dying from this water crisis. And we can do something about this.
At the ceramic filter factory, we also met a man named David Gray who was kind enough to show us around the factory, which was under construction, and explained how the ceramic filters were made.
So we receive the clay from the mine, and it's actually in larger chunks than this. We get it out of a mine from Bonao. We bring it here and take it off the truck, and we start to process it by hand, getting into smaller pieces, and we'll actually get it down to almost a fine grain at one point. So this is our raw material. You can see that it is not clean. We often get pieces of wood, large pieces of wood inside of our sawdust. This is our main drying area for sawdust. So we spread the sawdust out, turn it a couple times a day, and the heat from the sun dries that. We do a dry mix, so we put our sawdust and our clay in here and mix it. Our colloidal silver can come in 2 forms or 3 forms. It can come in a dry powder form, it can come in a paste, or it can come in a liquid. So what you're seeing is a 3-station press. There's a male and a female mold. We also use plastic to separate between the mold and the clay so that they don't stick to each other. Inside of our pots is sawdust. The temperature that we take our kiln to burns the sawdust out inside of the pot. The black carbon layer is the remnants of that sawdust that's burning out. We could take our kiln to a temperature where that black layer is completely gone, but we don't take it to that maximum temperature. We allow that to remain inside of our pot so that it helps make the water taste better.
As we were looking around the area, we wondered who was using the ceramic filters and what percentage of the people had them. To help answer these questions, Lisa showed us a hillside community where she first started distributing the ceramic filters. This community drew its water from a nearby river, which was contaminated from a variety of different sources. They stored the water they pumped from the river in a plastic bucket and let them sit next to their houses. This added to the contamination of the water. Lisa estimated that only about 5% of the people who need ceramic filters in the area actually have access to them. Before we left the factory, a very fascinating individual named Radameus explained to us how making ceramic filters had become a passion for him, not just because they provided clean water, but because they changed people's lives. This passion seemed common with the individuals who are involved in the point-of-use water filtration systems.
My name is Radamés Carela. I work with the Pote for more than 40 years. I can say the clay is my love, is my passion. Every day I work with the clay. When I begin with the project of the filter, this thing changed my life. First, I work for love with the clay, but in the second situation with the filter, I work for love to the people. When we do this filter, we are changing the life of the people who use our filter. Can drink very clean water after use the filter. For that, I feel very happy with the project.
The next morning, we met a man named Bob Hildreth, who is a Rotary Water Projects Coordinator in the Dominican Republic. He was an expert on another type of point-of-use water filter called the biosand filter.
Since you have a tank, and this is a concrete biosand filter that's full of gravel and sand. And real quickly, the lower portion is full, has gravel that's about 1/2 inch, and then you have a barrier material about 2 inches, which keeps the sand from penetrating down to the lower section. And then we have very fine sand all the way up to about this level. And the way the filter works is we remove the top of the filter, then water is introduced into the top of the filter. It goes through a diffuser plate. The plate has holes in it. That's to diminish the velocity that the water goes into it so that you don't disturb the sand below there. You need to maintain and establish a biological layer within it. So thus we get the biosand. The filtering with sand alone, you would normally get about a 60% reduction of bacteria. When you get a robust biolayer, a bacteria film that forms around the top grains of sand, you can get up to about 99% reduction in bacteria.
Bob took us to a small production factory that made biosand filters near the city of Dajabon on the border of Haiti.
To make the biosand filters, the factory workers would mix the cement and pour it into molds. It took about 24 hours for the mold to dry, and then the structure of the filter would be taken out. This factory also distributed the filters and internal parts, basically rocks and sand, to areas of the Dominican Republic with the truck they had.
How do you see it growing in the future?
¿Cómo lo ve el crecimiento en el futuro?
Yo lo vislumbro gigante. Hoy, más que nunca, ese proyecto se ve que su crecimiento va a ser gigante.
I see it growing gigantically, and today even more so, that there's a lot of growth.
There was another type of biosand filter that we saw that was made of plastic. This seemed to us much easier to make and distribute because it weighed very little. However, the plastic filter was produced out of the country. The idea of the cement biosand filter, as well as the ceramic filter, was not only to provide clean water, but to also offer employment to the local people in the production and distribution process of these filters. Because biosand filters produce a significant volume of water, they can also be used in a community center to service more than one home. We began to see that point-of-use water filtration systems could play other roles in developing countries besides providing clean water.
¿Cómo era su vida antes de tener el filtro Biorren?
Bueno, ¿cómo le digo? Era más costosa, porque nos manteníamos comprando los botellones de agua, lo cual no nos daba ninguna seguridad, porque en realidad son aguas que uno no sabe ni cómo la elaboran, sino nada más confiando en que era un agua prácticamente, y la comprábamos, pero siempre después del filtro, nosotros le veíamos cuando venían los nietos, teníamos que hervir esa agua.
We saw one additional process in both Africa and the Dominican Republic for collecting and purifying water that had been used for hundreds of years. It did not require a filtration device, but it did require a chemical treatment. Many individuals had rain barrels connected to the runoff from their roofs. Even though rain may be plentiful in tropical areas, the way in which it is harvested and stored can be detrimental to one's health. Runoff from the roofs can contain animal waste and other materials. Letting the water sit in barrels in hot climates can cause a rapid growth of bacteria. In most cases, additional treatment with chlorine is essential to make the water safe.
You know, a lot of organizations promote rainwater catchment. Well, that's a great water source if you have rain, but it's not a safe water system.
Yeah. We're looking at some of these roofs and they're like,
well, I'm not too worried about the 10, but it's
Yeah.
the birds that sit up there
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
full of
Yeah.
parasites. So, anyway.
One point-of-use device that we did not get to see in the Dominican Republic was the water cone. Having an abundance of ocean coastline, this device, which can actually desalinate water, may be a viable option for this country. It is very simple in design. You simply pour the contaminated water, or the seawater, into the bottom tray, cover it with the clear cone, and let the sun do all the work.
As the heat builds up in the inside of the cone, the water evaporates, leaving the contaminants and salt in the bottom tray. And the water is trapped on the top and the side of the clear cone. It then runs down the side and is collected in a ridge along the bottom of the cone. Turning the cone upside down and removing the cap, you can pour out the collected clean water. As we wrapped up our filming in the Dominican Republic, we realized that the choice to use a ceramic or a biosand filter was more of an economic decision rather than a health-related decision, as in Kenya. The Dominicans almost always had access to bottled water, but it was simply cheaper in the long run to use a point-of-use filter.
The average family in the developing world spends up to 25% of their annual income on water. In contrast, the average family in the United States spends only 0.05% of their annual income on water. By using a point-of-use filtration device, the people of the Dominican Republic can divert the money they presently spend on bottled water to other essential needs.
In Kenya and the Dominican Republic, the water crisis is just not an issue of scarcity, but of access and purity. Solutions are available. Point-of-use systems are being used to bridge the gap until more permanent solutions can be implemented.
However, we realized that point-of-use systems might be the permanent solutions for many of the homes that we visited. The possibility to create an infrastructure for water, or even build a well in some of these communities, is extremely low or simply not possible in the foreseeable future.
These trips gave us a tremendous opportunity to experience two significantly different cultures, view unbelievable landscapes, and meet people that always had a smile to offer us even in the face of extreme poverty. We came to see how water plays a vital role in not only people's lives, but also in their culture. We realized that the availability of clean water is not just a health issue, but also an economic concern.
As you begin the balanced equation unit, it will be your task to determine which of these 7 devices will offer the most sustainable solution to the problem you are facing. As in our trips, social, economic, and environmental issues will have to be taken into consideration. Barriers that limit the effectiveness of particular devices may also present themselves. Good luck.
Yeah, a picture of grapes.
That's taking a nap right now because I'm really tired. The first plane ride was pretty cushy. I got like a whole row to myself besides Racine, but now I just really want to take a nap because this jet lag's bothering me.
Water is sexy. Filters are hot.
Make a splash.
Your butt will look great.
So you let me try.
Oh, that many left.
Look at Sammy.
And also to be like, wear a happy face even when you're mad. That's a new lesson.
Yeah, I think once I get home and like get rested and readjusted, I know I'm gonna make an effort to be just happier.
Well, the first day,
Like, more
we have an
accepting.
excuse to be crabby because we're gonna be very tired. After that, no excuses.
No excuses.
It's over. Yep. Cindy?
Jet lag.
Losing 8 hours.
Desire is really to get a lot of young people involved into changing the world, because like in the United States, I love this place, but also sometimes I'm heartbroken in this place, because even for the young people, they have so much and they don't realize that. And I always see how, like sometimes each day I come across a young person here and we're talking or doing something, and I'm just like comparing the same young person with a young person at my age, and I'm like, I only wish you knew, what you have. But I always encourage young people, do something when you can, because you can change the world. First, start by changing the world of one person. If you can change the world of just one, it will help them realize their own world, because their own world is so blessed, but they don't know it is. But if they can change the world of one impoverished person, and they see that they did that, then their own world will be changed forever. That's why I'm so passionate about young people here.